Okay, we'll begin. What we'll do today is finish Siman Pei Zayin, Baruch Hashem. Pei Zayin, Hilchos Basar B'Chalav. Do a little bit of a review and point out some issues that are actually very relevant today in our time, that are somewhat found in these halachas. As I handed out to you an article about the issue of gelatin, the various opinions, some of the problems. It is quite comprehensive. Nevertheless, it doesn't go into all the details surrounding the topic, but you do get an idea of the various opinions concerning some of the problems associated with gelatin, which we will go through a little bit because it relates to our siman towards the end, pretty much. Didn't have time to put together a PowerPoint or a video. I figured this may be just a little bit easier. You can take it home and review it. Just wanted to go over a little bit the main nekudas here that are pretty much emphasized in the last seifim. The last seifim of this siman concern components. Components of chalav in its different states of, I guess we can call it degradation, perhaps, and components of basar too. And even though it's not really components, but various forms of basar, or atzamos, bones, which may pose a problem or may not pose a problem in various ways. When we're dealing with basar and atzamos, it is not only an issue of if this basar or etzem is an avela or behemoth may and therefore treif. The issue of basar and atzamos concerns the halachas of basar b'chalav too, sometimes, right? So we have various concerns when we're dealing with the hide or the skin of an animal, the bones, and really anything that comes from an animal, especially if it comes from an animal tome, or an animal that is treif, because we're of the cloud that anything that comes from a treif or from a tome is just like it. It resembles it. That's true, whether it's the urine or whether it's anything, supposedly, that comes from a non-kosher animal, it's just like the non-kosher animal. But there are times that something that has come from a non-kosher source can become tohor, can become clean. And that is if it no longer has the status of food. After all, we're not talking about something that is also behano right now, if it's an avela or a treifa. We're talking about something which is also for us to ingest, also for us to eat. Okay? So if it's not edible, then apparently the problem of eating it should no longer exist, even though it did exist once upon a time. There can be, however, some things that are not edible from the very, very beginning. They were food to begin with. They never had tam to begin with. And that is pretty much the halacha legabe gidim, sinews. And begidin benoten tam. They're not really an issue. You don't even have to process them. You don't have to do anything to them. They don't emit flavor. They don't pose a problem. But you'd be surprised about hides. Hides, the skin, the or, if you've never heard about it, but there's a Mexican delicacy called chicharrones. Here it is called pork rinds. Rinds, R-I-N-D-S, I think so. That's what, somehow I saw that name, that word. Yeah? Okay, good. Anyway, so apparently they're making food out of the rind, out of the skin. That's where it comes from. Deep fry, I don't know how they do it. But they can actually bring about some flavor to it. They can make it edible somehow through some process. Even though in its raw state it may not be so edible. So what? Apparently there's some things that even if at some stage they're not, they can eventually become. They have been transformed to something unedible. They may be reconstituted at some point through some processes of either cooking or doing something else to it. So it could have been nifsal me'achila. It could have been no more food. Nifsal meaning no more food. And comes back again to being food. So that's as far as orot, atzamot, which present a problem if they come from a non-clean source. And they may present a problem in basar b'chalav too, if in fact we find out that there's flavor coming out. Because in basar b'chalav we're concerned about tam. obviously, right? And in order for the tam to be present and for it to be asur min Torah, it has to be derech bishul. So even though we spoke about Melicha is keroteach, in kavush kemevushal, that's midorabanan. It may pose a problem, but not midoraisa, right? Midoraisa, it has to be real bishul on the fire for it to give off the tam and for it to be asur. Okay. As far as the chalav itself, however, if the chalav was pogum milechatchila, now we're going to chalav. We finished with the meat. If the milk was pogum milechatchila, was totally no good, right? It may not qualify as chalav, and I may be able to cook it with milk, with meat. Even though I cannot benefit from basar b'chalav, we did say that shelo kederech achila, so it just means if it became pogum later. If something was pogum from the very beginning, from the very start, it's no good. That doesn't have the chalois, doesn't have the status of chalav to begin with, or the problem of basar b'chalav, because it's not edible to begin with, as opposed to not having, not becoming edible later on at some point. That at least there may not be an isur. I don't know. You may not be eating something that is edible, but you're not allowed to have benefit from it anyway. But if it's totally not chalav, then it may not be an issue. What's an example of something that is not chalav that we learned recently? Either we have two kinds. We had a machloikis by nisiyube de chalbo, which is the way, according to most opinions. And even though I would have liked to show how cheese is made, we can basically go through the process very briefly. The nisiyube de chalbo is a component of milk. It's a component that is not really milk. It's not really milk, but for basar b'chalav purposes it is. Why? Because it's very, very close to milk. It's not the milk, because the main milk, when you make cheese, what happens through the process of putting in rennet, which is already done after the milk has been made somewhat sour. By the way, if you ever have milk that's gone sour and it's not drinkable, you don't have to throw it away. You can make cheese with it. You can make other things with it. That sourness in milk is exactly what you need to make cheese. You can do it with vinegar, you can do it with buttermilk, you can do it with yogurt, you can do it with all kinds of acidic liquids, that when you put that into milk, regular milk, you are making it, you're raising the level of acidity which is necessary, that when you put the rennet, the curding will solidify the casein. In other words, all the milk, the real milk, into good solid pieces. If you don't put rennet, whether it's, by the way, there's different kinds of rennets, right? You know that. There's the rennet from the animal skin, and there's other kinds of rennets, all the kind of cultures. If you don't put rennet, and all you do is put vinegar or lemon juice or something into that milk, you will be able to make cottage cheese. You will be able to make soft cheese. But to get the real hard cheese, you need rennet. And for the rennet to work well, it has to be in sour milk. It has to have a certain level of acidity. So in putting in the rennet, or in putting in the acid, you are creating a situation where we are separating the whey from the curd that's in the bottom, that which has curd, that which has coagulate, that which is forming into cheese. There's of course different kinds of cheeses, because there's the additional stages of what you're going to do with that curd, and what cultures you put in there, and are you going to cure it and age it, right? There's all the other process, but the main process of making cheese involves the first step, where we have separated the two components. This whey that's floating on the top, that is removed, that you can make ricotta cheese with, you can still make cheese with it. It's still a little bit there. That's called nisiyube de chalba. So that's a component of milk. But we hold, of course, that is, the Mechaber says that that's not bichlal mei chalav. That is real milk. For our purposes of basar b'chalav, that's real milk. Whereas mei chalav, which is after you take the nisiyube de chalba, and you cook that further, and they sometimes do that to make other products, that water that's extracted from that, of the nisiyube, that's called mei chalav. So mei chalav, we said, is not a problem. So nisiyuba would be also min Torah, masha'inkin mei chalav. So that was just a few examples that we went through to describe components of milk. As far as melichiks and fleishiks, yes, we're even makpid on dairy equipment, as far as waiting between and milk, right? There's additional chumrot, restrictions, which we'll be learning in the other simanim about, having them on the same table. Somebody wants to eat pizza, and his friend wants to eat a steak at the same table, right? They're not even cooking it together, it's not on the same plate, it's on the same table. There are various restrictions in Basar b'chalav. But we're getting into a little bit now, towards the end of the siman, into the chemistry of the basar and the chalav. So, chalav will always be an issue, unless it's mei chalav. But what happens if it's pirsha? What happens if it's the keva? What happens if it's milk that is found in the stomach of the calf? That's milk that this calf drank, right? Nursed from this mother. So the chalav that's found in that particular stomach, which is the last one, the fourth stomach, from what I recall, that milk will eventually need to be digested. So there's something in that stomach, in the lining of that stomach, with time, that coagulates or allows for that milk to be digested. Only from that stomach. That's where they take the piece and they make rennet from. Natural rennet. Natural rennet made from either that skin of a regular calf or even from pigs, from other animals. It could work. And the acidity in that environment, of course, is what makes it so coagulate. In other words, what transforms that milk into pirsha. Pirsha is basically excess, garbage, something that is waste. After it has been somewhat digested, that is what it's like. If it just nursed half an hour ago, it may still look like milk. But after a while, pirsha is pirsha. It's not even considered milk. So this is one component that we learned that would not be a problem according to most poskim. But that's in a b'di'evet situation. Lechatchila, of course, there are other issues. There's issues of maris ayin, right? And there's an issue of what happens if that pirsha was not just removed, it actually sat there by mistake and it was nimlach. It was salted together with the meat, with the keva. Some people, eat the intestines, eat the stomachs. So they were salting it just like anything else that needs to be salted to remove the blood. So, lechatchila, we've said the various shitas as to what the status of this pirsha is. But the Mechaber says that this chalav by itself, without having been salted, would not present any problems. On the contrary, you would be allowed to cook it. Mutar levashel bo basar. That's incredible. In this pirsha, afilu betzolul shebo. The Mechaber holds, like the Shita, the Rambam basically, right, that it makes no difference if it's tzolul or korush. If it's pirsha, you can even cook with it. However, he says, you know what? Don't do it. Yesh mi she'oisa. Whenever he says yesh mi she'oisa, obviously he says there are some that would say that it's better not to. V'chen noegin, as it's brought down. Lechatchilu, we don't do that. But it's important to know the halacha because there might be a b'di'evet situation. There may be a situation of a hefset meruba, right? So, all right. So at least we know that this is pirsha, and at least we went through the shitas, the machlokes of Rashi and Tosfos, of whether it's the tzolol and the korosh or the tzolol and not the korosh. Here he says, even if it's tzolol, it's not a problem. It's pirsha be'alma. All right. So this type of milk, but the ever for sure would not be a problem. When is there a problem? Cholav hanimtza bekeva shenimlach bekivasa. It was salted. Or she'omad bo yom echad, or it was there like kavush a whole day. Also le'amid boy. So the Mechaber says also le'amid boy. Wait a minute. You just finished telling us that this type of milk is not milk. Just because it was salted, yes, because it was salted, then there's a problem here. The problem is that it may have absorbed through the process of Melicha or kavush some of the ta'am habasar. Well, obviously, if this chalav will have ta'am habasar, and you want to make cheese with this, right? We're going to be using this pirsha, which you can use to make cheese. Just like you can use the skin, you can use the pirsha You can use all kinds of ingredients, we said. So, but this pirsha is going to be a problem because it may have tama basar. Vehemid boy, if you did by mistake, imhuat solo, according to the Ramah, according to the Beis Yosef, but the evet, this halacha is okay. What he's telling us here is only a lechatchila. Don't do it. It was nimlach. The Ramah, of course, is more machmir. He says if it was batzolu, oiser kol agvinas achi shishim becholav she'em neged akiva. So until you have 60 in the cholav, keneged the kiva asur keneged. In other words, that pirsha. B'imoyo shishim becholav akol mutar. It would be okay. Then he says imoyo akiva krusha eno seres klum. It's okay if it was krusha was solidified. It would not be a seres. Afilu lo shishim becholav neged akiva. If it was first solon and then it became nikrash, solidified, it would have the status of solon. Some are lenient in this example of first started off as solon, then became korush. Okay, so before we go to the last Ramah, which is an important Ramah, let's just see what happened here. We're talking about a situation where the pirsha may have absorbed some tam of basar. If that's the case, why is b'di'evad mutar? B'di'evad, we say what we always said. It's pirsha anyway. Yeah, but wait a minute. Okay, it's pirsha, but you have tam basar. What are we going to do about the tam basar? So we explained two explanations for the most part. One is that the tam basar in a pirsha, this tam basar coming out on pirsha, is pirsha too. Otherwise, b'di'evad, this should be a problem too. If you have I'm sorry, I made a mistake. No. If you have the tam, you have a tam. No, the tam habasar, any tam habasar there may be in this pirsha is pirsha be'alma. Or, as the other explanation, I think that the Shach says that the conduit through which this tam of basar will get to the Gevina goes through pirsha. Pirsha is not a good conduit. You will not be able to transfer that tam, Okay, he seems to be saying something similar, a little bit differently. Either way, in the end, we're not really concerned, at least according to the Mechaber not. Okay, according to the Mechaber, of course. The Ramah makes a big deal about it. Of course, you need shishim, and oy vavoy, if it's tzolul, the tam is there. In the Mechaber said, you shouldn't do it. Obviously, the Mechaber is concerned, lechatchila. For what reason? There's maybe some tam basar, and I think the Rambam says on this that you wouldn't want to be mevatel iser lechatchila here. To do it intentionally, it would be a form of mevatel iser, right? In other words, to allow this to happen. So therefore, that we can see would be the concern as far as the lechatchila of why the Mechaber, why the Rambam would say don't do it, even though it's pirsha. The tam could be a problem. All right, now before we go on to the next seif, the Ramah tells us one more additional point. Or hakeva lefanim molchim oiso umiyabshim oiso. Sometimes they take the skin and they salt it and they dry it. V'na'asa ke'etz, and it becomes like a piece of wood. Umimalim oto chalav. They fill it up with milk. Mutar. Wow. Once it has become like a piece of wood, have you ever seen petrified wood? You know what petrified wood? From the minerals, it becomes mineral. It becomes like a rock. Have you seen that? Yeah, it's very interesting. Right. A wood, because of the exposure to certain elements over time, can become petrified. Petra can become like a stone. Anyway, so etz is a piece of wood. Even though this was an or, and an or is a bigger problem than atzamot. Okay? We've learned before, we learned in Halacha Taaruvot, and we discussed it already, that atzamot, bones, especially the drier bones, don't present a problem. It is perhaps asur midrabanan lechatchila to use them. Of course, it comes from a nevela or treifa, just like anything else. But in the event they were ever mixed into the pot with kosher food. On the contrary, we can actually derive some benefit from them, according to one shita, where they could be mitzaref with the heter to do mevatel the isur of the meat there, because all it is bones. No. Oh, very good point. But let's not forget that not all bones are created equal. They are soft bones. There are bones that may have some meat residue of meat left on it, that they were never cleansed well. Yeah. And there is marrow bones. Bone marrow, yeah. So now that the Ramah tells us that it's true that a piece of skin that becomes Yovesh Ke'etz is Ke'etz, and you can lechatchila do whatever you want with it, okay. Then what's the problem with gelatin? One of the heterim in gelatin is this, is that if it's made from skin, which is more of a problem than if it's made from bones. Okay, remember that. Bones is less of a problem than skin. If it's made from skin, that Rambam pretty much explains that it's like meat itself, or is like Basar. When it comes to nevelas and treifas, and even to Basar b'chalav, or presents a problem sometimes. Right? It can. If it was nimlach and kavush and so forth. If there's tam. So therefore, what could be the problem with gelatin? Gelatin is made either from skin or from bones. So if you make it from bones, well, bones are okay. We don't do it lechatchila. That's true. It's also midrabbanan. So what could be the heter by bones? Well, it's not bones anymore. It was transformed into something else. It's made, the jello from the cartilage or whatever that you got out. It's panim chadashas, some would say. It's something completely different. Some will say, no, this is not panim chadashas, because that ingredient that you're extracting from the bones was always there from the beginning. You didn't do anything to it to make it something completely brand new. What you have really always existed. You may have processed it a little bit. So some will argue with that point of panim chadashas, which is not an accepted by everyone as a reason to be matir gelatin, because it's something different than what it was before. The fact that it comes from bones, first of all, is still a derabanan. Elamai, you want to say that it's completely possible? Nifsal me'achila? Maybe. Yes. Nifsal me'achila, yes. But don't tell me panim chadashas. If it's nifsal me'achila, it's not edible, and it came from bones? Okay, bones in itself is a derabanan. Right? Elamai, it's nifsal me'achila. Nifsal me'achila, there are most of beferish, it's ke'etz be'amo, you can use it with milk. Then what could be the problem? Could be the problem is that, first of all, like Ilan said, maybe some bones are from marrow. Marrow, moach atzamot. Yesh gam atzamot in moach. No, you don't know. When they use bones, who knows? Makes no difference, because once you're dealing with marrow bones, or bone marrow, you're dealing with basar mamash. Any etzem that has moach is nechshav basar. Now, when the Ramah tells us that or shenit yabesh, he didn't say basar shenit yabesh. So the Pri Megadim comes along and tells us this halacha of or shenit yabesh does not apply to basar shenit yabesh. You hear that? Meat, dried, salami, right? Salami is not so dry, but imagine something that's completely dry. It's completely dry. Then the Pri Megadim says it does not have the same din as or, and we'll try to understand why now. What should be the difference between basar and or if they're both dry? But speaking about gelatin, if it's already pasul me'achila, so what could be the problem? The problem is that if it's from bones, you may have bone marrow, and if it's bone marrow, that's basar. Or the bones themselves were not clean, and they had meat on them. So bones is not something just to laugh away at, it's bones anyway, and it's dry, and it's transformed. Not necessarily. Maybe there's still something there, okay? And then you have another opinion. I think Rav Aaron Kotler, Zechet Tzadik Levacha, is the one that says, whenever you take something that is no longer food, but you want to make it food, it's achshavei. You have to machshiv oto. You give it importance. You're saying, this is food for me, and I'm going to take it through a process to restore. You may be actually restoring the edibility of it. So there's two problems here. The achsheve, that you're giving it importance, plus you may be doing something to bring back, to restore the ability to eat, to consume, so it's going to be food again. All right. Anyway, that's not the only problem. One of the bigger problems, I think, is unless you know for sure that this problem doesn't exist, this problem is a problem. And that is, a lot of gelatin is made skin, not from bones. And the consensus is that if it's in fact from skin, from hides, then you wouldn't have the heter like you have with bones. With skin, it's another problem. Skin is like basar. But wait a minute. The Ramah is speaking about skin over here. He's saying, or hakeva lefamim molchim oto, right? Nase ke'etz. Machar shenityabesh, ave ke'etz be'amlo, ve'em bo lach luchit basar. So what could be the problem with skin then? We know that the problem with skin, as opposed to bones, is that skin is more like meat than bones is. But if you've made that into a gel, if you've made it into completely, like the Ramah says, that it's not edible, here he says it's okay. Then why shouldn't it be okay? And that's why Rav Chaim Ozer Grudensky is one of the leaders of the previous generation who came out with a psak that basically says gelatin is okay on condition, of course, that he says that there's shish, that it's no longer edible, and that it's made from bones, I believe. I think that was his psak. I think you have it in the handout. You will see towards the end his psak. If it's bones, in other words, because that's not meat, the gelatin, in other words, is something completely different than what it was. It's nifson mechila. What is that? No, the process of how they prepare them is completely makes it unedible. And eventually, for example, when they make capsules from it, to hold the medication inside, it's not edible. Some say that's even considered shalok derech achila.
This paper is the state of it being restated during the process.
That's part of the problem, exactly. So even if you will say it's nifsal mechila by or, and therefore it shouldn't be a problem, even though we said or is worse than atzamas, but it's nifsal mechila, it's nifsal mechila. But however, there's always the possibility that it can be reconstituted. It's only a temporary situation. Some say that the gelatin actually improves the food, and because of what it does, it's not called nifsal.
That's no problem. That's or.
The or is considered like basar, especially certain parts of the or. Bone is no. Bone doesn't have any time. Yeah. All right. So based on this, so it should not be a problem. However,
What you just said, didn't you say bones and soft bones?
yes,
What's
soft
that?
bones would be, of course, more of a problem.
Why is
But
that?
let's assume, no, some are mechalik between soft, some are mechalik between
So there are
soft.
opinions in Halacha.
Yeah, we got the soft ones. But so, Rav Chaim Ozer was heter is only on gabe atzomos yeveshos, right?
And-
Clean, of course, and it's nifsal me'achila, and it's bottle b'shishim. In other words, he doesn't make it easy. So therefore, to make from skins, it would be a problem.
With the Ramah's dry heter.
Right. So now we want to analyze that. So the Ramah is telling us by Basar B'Cholov that the or is not a problem. Why should it be a problem by making food with the from the skins of pigs? If they're yovesh legamre, right? Don't give time. So you can understand the opinions out there who say, listen, there's no Isur Hano, it's completely dried out, it's nothing. But obviously it also depends on what we're talking about. If we're talking about cheese, we're going to see in the next seif that there is an inyan of Dover Amamid. In Dover Amamid that comes from a nevela is not batel afilu be'elef because of what it does. So when it comes to cheese making, which can be made from rennet, a rennet that's made from skin, there's all kinds of rennets, right? That would be one of the reasons why Gvinot Akum, cheese made by Goyim, was asr. Was the Chacham said don't have it. Okay. Now, let's go on. Let's go see the Pri Megadim for a moment. The Pri Megadim says that the din of or shenit yabesh that the Ramah speaks about does not apply to basar. Piskei Teshuva also brings down name of Niddah Yehuda. If you look at the Shach, on this Ramah, the Shach says not only is this or okay if it dried, the same halacha would apply to all bnei me'ayin. Hu adin shar bnei me'ayin kshemiyabshem oisum ad shenasu ke'etz mimokom mokom nira de lechatchila ein lasos. Don't do it anyway. He says, but he seems to be saying, not like the Pri Megadim, he seems to be saying that even bnei me'ayin, even meats, this can apply to everything. Why? I think Rabbi Akiva Eiger explains that because we're concerned, maybe it's shelonis yabesh mamash, it was not completely dried out. Maybe there's still a little bit lachluchis on it. But the Rabbi Akiva Eiger says on this, since it's only a chashash, if you have shishim, you can do it lechatchila. You can, and it would not be called mevatel isur lechatchila. You know what's interesting about Rabbi Akiva Eiger? I think he explains it, that when it comes to making cheese with something that is completely dry in shishim, it's not a problem of mevatel isur lechatchila. Here we're talking about, of course, kosher, not treif. Kosher piece of skin. Why isn't it mevatel isur lechatchila? Because he says you're not trying to be mevatel the isur here. You're trying to just be ma'amid. You're trying to use the sgula, the strength, the chemical reaction of putting these two together there. You're trying to derive that benefit. It's not that you want to be mevatel. You couldn't care less about that isur. So he says that's not even called a mevatel isur lechatchila. So if you have shishim keneged the or, because it may have tam, right? Then the problem, you wouldn't have a problem with basar b'chalav.
So what you're saying is, if I understand it, on the piece that's aser, the intention of mixing the two together is to perform some kind of processing on the permitted one.
Yes, that's correct. That's what he seems to be saying, yeah. Because there's no vada isur over here. Right. Let's perhaps just go for a moment into the next sieve so we can elaborate a little bit more on this din of ma'amid. Im he'emid gvina. Actually, before we go to that, we still didn't finish explaining. So, what could be the problem with the or that is nisyabesh ke'etz, as far as gelatin is concerned? So there are those opinions, of course, who hold, as we were saying, that if once it's completely dried out, it's not a problem. What could be the problem then? So we have the additional concerns. One is that it could be reconstituted as food through the process. If it would be, in fact, completely dry forever and never a chance, it shouldn't be a problem. There's no isser to take something. There's even a whole tshuva, I think it's a piece of tshuva talks about using certain bugs, worms, that have been completely dry to dye food. You know, there's an ingredient out there called carmine, that you may see it in some juices. It's to enhance the redness of the juice. Now, you tell the company, why use carmine? Carmine is made from cats or from bugs.
Not from ants?
No.
From red ants in Japan.
From cat, because there's cochineal, which is made from bugs. Cochineal, and there's carmine. Carmine, I think, comes from a cat. From a cat, yeah. And you'll see it. When you look at guava juice, go to the supermarket, guava, they want to make it red, you may see carmine. It comes from a cat. It enhances the redness. That's a good question. I think they go to Thailand where they eat it. No, I don't know. I really don't know. Yeah, that's a good question. Why? Where do they? How do they get it? I'm not sure about the process, but I know it comes from that. Yeah. They use whales also for other things. Anyway, you will not find a good hashgacha on any product that has carmine. Why? Because it comes from something tameh, even though it's probably batel. Probably batel. Still, just because it's batel doesn't mean it's mutar lechatchila, right? Besides the issue of mevatel isur lechatchila, because they intended for you. Well, besides that, so what if it's batel lechatchila? You're going to have it. It's not like in your home, a little bit of milk dropped into the cholent. Oh, well, at least there's 60. I'm going to have it. That's not the case here. You don't have to buy it. Now, if you call the company, ask them, what are you trying to do here? You're trying to enhance the redness? Why don't you use something called Red 40? Have you seen Red 40? Red 40 is the artificial enhancer of red. You know what they're going to tell you? We prefer the real thing, natural, not artificial. Some people prefer natural ingredients. Animals are natural. Don't put anything chemical, chas v'shalom, chemical. But for us, it's a problem. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
By the way, according to the wiki, the carmine
They,
comes from
right.
insects.
Sometimes they can use beets for certain things, yeah.
According to the wiki text.
Okay, so look at, I'm sorry, if carmine comes from insects, so please look up coquino. C-O... Carmine is the one from insect?
Yeah.
Are you sure? Carmine is the insect? And look
I'm
up...
not sure, the wiki says.
Okay, so look up coquino. C-O-H-I-N-E-A-L.
Yeah. Carmine, called crimson lake cochineal natural latinum carminic acid, is produced from some scaled insects, such as term for particular dipterate, part of the same name. Carmine is used in the usual yogurts or juices.
All right, yeah. Okay, could be. I recall that it was from cats, unless civet. Look up civet, C-I-V-E-T. Civet is a cat, but there might be... That I don't. Yeah, that I don't know. Yeah, anyway, I don't... Yeah, these are coloring agents, yeah.
Coloring agents by product to be this.
Yeah, and the problem with some coloring agents is that, just like we're learning now the halacha of ma'amid, in making cheese, that is a problem, because of its importance, and we're going to explain soon the Rashba, there's an interesting Rashba on what's the koach of a ma'amid.
You want to see a photograph of what a civet looks like?
No, that's the animal, the civet.
That's an animal.
Yeah, but there may be an ingredient called that too. But anyway, it's been a while. I don't remember all the origins and sources of every ingredient, but I remember some come from cats, some from whales, some from bugs. There's a tequila in Mexico that you can actually see the ant, the worm inside. It's a yichos. It's a special tequila. Anyway, so these are issues concerning kashrus because an enhancer of flavor is more than just a tam. It does more. It's a form of ma'amid, perhaps. It's enhancing the color, right. So it may not be such a big problem. You're right, and especially if it's bottled anyway. But we're not going to eat something like that. You're right. It may not be because it's bottled, and maybe it's even dry completely. Perhaps if we have to look into it, on what the process is. I haven't done that. But that's coming back to our halacha. The Ramah seems to be saying that if something is completely dry, it should not be a problem with basar b'chalav. Therefore, it should not be a problem with gelatin. Just that with gelatin, we have other issues of if it's being reconstituted. What if it's cooked again? If it's cooked again, that's one of the concerns of the basar. The concern of the basar that we were saying that the Pri Megadim holds that the basar you can soften it again. You can cook it and it can emit flavor even if it was dry. It doesn't lose completely. It has not become completely pasum me'achila. I mean, apparently something can become pasum me'achila because it's pogum, but he says it does not have the same din as or. Okay, so anyway, so with the gelatin you have other issues that the Chachamim, the Rabbanim, the Poskim were concerned about. Even though lemaisa, if you look at all the facts, it may just be that it's completely not a problem. Say it's bottle, it's not roi la'achila. If it comes from atzomos, b'chalal it's not a problem. And there's some rabbanim who therefore are matter if it comes from atzomos. Once you say it's or, brings up additional problems that if it's not completely posel me'achila, then for sure it's still an issue. So we don't know, So it could be a problem. So there's no good hashgacha therefore here in America at least on gelatin unless it's kosher, real kosher gelatin made from kosher hides or made from fish. Right? But I have another copy for you if you want an article over the gelatin problem. Sif Yud Aleph therefore says like this: if you did make cheese in the skin of a kiva of a kshera, yesh batam basar asura. If there's a tam of basar, it's asur, obviously. Imlav muteret. All right, so far so good.
No, you just said the prima donna of the basar itself.
No, here we're talking about that you made cheese. Okay, you made the cheese by putting a small piece of the skin into you used the or, not basar. Remember, you used the or. Okay, and even though it's or, but if there was tam basar, everybody agrees that it's going to be a surah, obviously. But look at the chiluk here. The Mechaber says, "Aval hama'amid be'or kevat nevela." You're going to make cheese with treif animals, nevela utrefa ubehemat mea. Pork, a small piece of rennet. Oser bekol shehu, even a little bit. Why? Well, 1 second. What's the difference? Why is there a halacha of dover hama'amid be'nevela treifa tmeya and not by basar b'chalav? So the answer is, as the Shach explained, Basar b'chalav are not asur each one by themselves. It's not a isur me'atzmo. For something to be asur, like as a dover or mamid, it has to be an isur me'atzmo. It can't even be an isur balua.
What if the davar hamabulea?
Makes no difference. It has to be an isur me'atzmo.
Because if it's balua, it doesn't have.
Yeah, it's not the isur me'atzmo. Therefore, if you have, imagine you have or with an ayin, of a keva kshera, that somehow was bolei at the time of a nevela.
But the nevela is not.
No.
It's the or.
It's the or, right.
What if the balua is the davar hamid? In other words, if you have salt that was bolei some kind of thing, that thing is the davar hamid, not the salt. So would it be because it's the davar balua, it doesn't have hashivas, and therefore it doesn't have independent of the balua?
From what I recall, I understand your question now. Yeah, if that in itself is doing the whole mamid, yeah, it may be because
davar hashuv, since it's balua, it reaches its new status of being.
Yeah, because when do we say isur balua is not a problem because it's a tam, it's not the real thing, it's not the real isur.
Yeah, it can asur more than itself could be. So if you have a lot of salt and a little.
The whole thing is an isur midrabanan. The whole thing of isur davar mamid, by the way, is a derabanan. So the rabbanan did not say that it's an isur balua. So here you're saying that the isur balua is the one that's being maimed. I still think that nevertheless it wouldn't make a difference because they were not geyser on that. Even though you have a point, it's all it's doing is the basar, the regular basar, is encapsulating, is enclosing it, and it's holding it, and the real thing is in there. But
the one that is responsible for being the mamid is the balua. If the boleh, if the one that contains it, so that it's the davar mamid and the ilwa in the davar mamid, then it's cool.
Yeah, but that's not it. The thing is that the isur balua is not the ikr. That's why. When we were talking about the poshup shot, I see your point, but the poshup shot is that when you're talking about an isur balua, that's not the ikr. And since that's not the ikr, there's no zero derabanan on that. So here, amami boy kervus nevel treiv beivin also bekoshu. But if it's basar b'chalav, they were never mevushal. Now, if you had basar b'chalav that's cooked together, then you have an isur basar b'chalav, an isur me'atzmai. But if they were here, we're talking about that they were nimlach together. Remember, they were nimlach together. If anything, it may have absorbed some basar. That's not isur basar b'chalav. There's no isur me'atzmai. That's an isur balua. If anything, it's not even an isur balua. It's a tam balua. It's not a tam that came about through bishul. So here, the only time you have an isur ma'amid is if it's an isur me'atzma, real nevela treiva. Here we don't have a situation of basar b'chalav being an isur me'atzma. So that's what he explains. The Ramah explains mishum the davar also be'atzma ma'amid afilu be'elef lo botol. That's basically brings down in the Shema Rashba. Before we see the last words of the Ramah, let's try to understand what's this davar ma'amid business. What's going on with the davar mamid? Why should davar mamid be so asur? So the Rashba explains that even though it's a small piece of isur, because of what it does to the food, because of what it does to the cheese, it actually forms the cheese. It is as though the isur is bo'ein. It is as though the isur is present. Because of that kind of koach. The koach that, in other words, this is the koach of the nevela, as somebody else explains. This is the koach that's coming out from the nevela. That's something that the Rabbanan felt. It's also just as much. But the Rashba says more than that. What's interesting about the Rashba is that the Vilna Gaon explains that is the meaning of the Gemara in Avodah Zarah. If I remember correctly, the Gemara over there questions what's the real reason or why we answer the Gvinas Akom. So it's explained over there because they're ma'amidim bekevosh or keva of animals that are for Avodah Zarah. If that's the case, why shouldn't it be asur behana? Right? If it's Avodah Zarah, why shouldn't it be asur behana? So the answer is Let me see if I remember right now. Elamai, it's not, in other words, the answer, in other words, that there's really nothing there. There's really nothing there, so therefore there's no Isra Behano. What's there? There's nothing there. But in answer to that, there is something there. It's Ma'imid. So I think that's the way the Vilna Gaon learns. The Gra says that even though there's nothing there to Asr Behana, the reason why it's still Asr, there's nothing there, is that it is being Ma'amid, it is coagulating the cheese, the milk. So that itself is as though it is present.
In other words, that what makes cheese different from milk is the one that gives away that there is an Isser there.
Yeah, let me see if I can find it here. That Vilna Gaon. I have here a copy of the Tshuva. No, the Gra. Somebody brought it. Yeah. Let's see if I can see here. Okay, I'll look it up soon. Anyway, so that's the din of Ma'imid. Ma'imid has a chashivas because of its presence there, or because of what it is accomplishing. The last halacha, the last nekuda that Ramah mentions, is as follows: V'dafka shelo hoyo shamamid acher rak ha'osor. That's only in the condition that particular mamid is the only one that is there, and that mamid is the osur one. What happens if you have two ingredients that are both equally powerful? They both contribute towards the coagulation. They both contribute equally, supposedly, to do the same thing. One is osur, one is mutter. Then we have a new halacha, a new concept called zeh v'zeh gorem. Whenever you have zeh v'zeh gorem, two things equally contributing the same, and each one, this is the halacha l'chatchila, and each one on its own cannot do it, but you need the two of them, 50-50. אבל אם היה שם גם כן מעמיד היתר, וזה וזה גורם, ומותר אם איקה 60 נגד האסור. Then if you have 60 כנגד האיסור, you would be okay. Okay, great. So if we have two rennets, the problem is with rennet, even just a little bit can do it. All you need is a little bit, a few grams. You can make a lot of cheese. But in an event, you have some product where you have one that's mutter and one that's asr, and they both contribute equally, then it would not be a problem. You would not have a davar mamid, even though the davar mamid is also there. No, but there's a davar mamid a heter. So now the question on this Ramah, there's a shach and taz over here, is like this: what did the Ramah really mean? Did the Ramah mean that even if you have a davar mamid which is mutter, and the davar hamamid which is asur can do it on its own? In other words, the fact that you introduce a davar hamamid that is heter, it neutralizes davar hamamid that is asur? Or is it only if they cannot do the job on their own? But if the davar hamamid ha'asur can do the job on its own, but there's also a davar hamamid hamutar, would that help? So some say no. Oh, no. That's only if they can't do it on their own and together they do it. Then you're in good shape. But if the davar hamamid ha'asur by itself can coagulate, it just happens to be that this ingredient has a davar hamamid, an additional davar hamamid that's kosher, which you don't really need, then it won't make a difference. But the Ramah seems to be saying, if you really look at it, it could be that he's saying a big chiddush here. And not everybody agrees with that, if that's what he meant. That the fact is that if you have a davar mamid hamutar, then we cancel out the isur of davar mamid asur. Just because you have another one. It's there. Whereas the simple rule of zeh v'zeh gorem is only said when each one equally contributes. But when the other one, the asur one, can do it on its own, then it won't help. But there are Muslims to be saying... Exactly.
It might make it stronger, different kind of cheese.
Yeah, who knows, yeah. Obviously, if the mutter alone can do it, then you probably don't need the asr one. But there may be, sometimes they add different cultures and different stages of cheese making, get different flavors. No, but this is already past the curdling stage anyway, so I don't think that would be a problem. But you're right, in the event where the heter is enough, usually they won't enough, but there may be a situation where they for whatever reason, they both are different, they add in both. So the Rama seems to be saying, since the fact I have a mutter one, the usher one I ignore, even though you can handle it and all. So some will say the only time I allow the usher is if the heter can also do it on its own. If the heter cannot do it on its own at all, they would not allow for it. Some will say no, but the evet behefsed meruba, we can rely on that understanding of the Ramah, that if you have both, it would be okay. Now, what's interesting is that this whole thing is taken from a Mishnah, legabe se'or. You know what se'or is? It's a leavening agent that is mechametz. Mechametz. It leavens, it sours. You have chulin and truma. And you have that question of zev zegorem over there. If they're both zev zegorem, it's okay. But if you have one, the truma that can be doing on its own, obviously it's going to be a problem. So someone will say, you see, over there, if that one can do, the Isra one can do it on its own, it could be a problem. But there appears to be a difference. The poskim explain between that Mishnah and in this case. Over there, the problem of mechametz is a problem of ta'am, flavors. Of course, if one can contribute enough flavor, it would be also. Here, there's no flavor involved at all. It's plain energy. Plain energy, so we're saying, we have two of them. It's not just the aser. Would the Rabbanan say this too? That it's afilu be'elef lo batel? Remember, we're having a little bit of peace here. It's afilu be'elef lo batel. But it's a davar mami, because it's a davar mami. But I have a kosher one too. Zevese goyim. Perhaps in this case, if there's no tam, perhaps in this case we would say this chidush, that once I have the two, then you still say zevese goyim, even though the iser one on its own can make the davar mamid. Could be. I mean, that depends how you understand the Ramah.
You don't have any time by
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
What brought it about? What came?
Yeah. Right.
Two people are pushing a piece of food more. I mean,
Yeah.
it's got to be both of them push a little bit.
Yeah. Anyway, let's go just a little bit back just to review one or two more points. Legabe, what Ramah said about eitz shenis yavesh. The Yore Deah explains that what is happening when an eitz nis yavesh is poka ha'isur. Just to understand a little bit what happens. So what if the etz nis yavesh? Well, if the etz nis yavesh, the Yore Deah says poka toras basar, toras oichel, and it's like isur shenisrach and it's not an isur. The Prime Godim, however, in explaining this idea, says it's not that the isur is gone. If something becomes yavesh, it means it's lost its lachluchit. It's lost its how would you say lachluchit?
Moisture.
Moisture. Thank you, moisture. That's this moisture, then there's no time, there's no problem. What's the nafkamina between these two svarot? If, like we said before, that's why the Prime Godim was concerned about Basar, I think. If you are able to take this or, shenit yabesh, and recook it, or re-wet it, you may be able to get back the lachluchit of it. Whereas, according to the Yore Deah, once an etz shenit yabesh, it became dry. If poka isura, if the isur is gone, it's gone forever. This may even help us in other situations, even if you bring it back, theoretically. It's gone, it's gone. You can never bring it back to be the same. Some would argue that that's a big machlokes. If you can bring something back, according to the Yore Deah, if something is nitabesh pakai suro, it's gone. If it's gone, it's gone. Anyway, I saw somebody brings in the name of the Ran that by Zev Zegorim it's only b'di'eva, because lechatchila to make a Zev Zegorim would also be a form of mevatel isur lechatchila. Just a b'di'eva, if it was done, we don't worry about it. Anyway, as far as the Ma'amid, I also saw Crazy Placing explains that even though there's no plita from the Isur, the Ma'amid or Kevat Nevela, nevertheless, as we explained before, even though there's no plita coming out, there's a certain koach, he says, that you are deriving, it's a benefit of sorts, a different kind of benefit that you're deriving from the Nevela. Yet Yehuda brings down, I saw that it's the harifas of the keva, that something is emitted. and that something, that mashahu, is not bottle. So there's different opinions as to why Dover Amamid is also, but I think the Rashba pretty much explains it very, very clearly, that it's as though the Isser is Ba'in. As though the Isser is still there.
Because it's five, wasn't it? You can identify.
Yes.
Besides the header, you can find what the Isser is. And here, the Isser in the header. The fact that the header was transformed into cheese. This is a giveaway that the performed a function and made it detectable.
Right.
Yeah.
Could be, yeah. He seems to be saying, like over there in Avodah Zarah, that apparently there's still something around of the original Isser. Something is still there.
And what is there?
And therefore, if when we explained Hilchas Bittul, and we said that Bittul doesn't apply to something that is banned, so therefore it's like you're saying, it's more like identifiable. It's something that is distinguishable.
Detectable.
Right. Anyway, so Legabe this last Ramah, there's a little bit of a tzarech iyun. What did he actually mean? Did he say that it would be mutter even if in a Zevazei Gorim situation, even in a situation where the Isser can do it on its own or not? That is a little bit questionable, and not everybody agrees with that. But at least, B'di'evet, we can be somewhere. B'di'evet in a situation where you do have two contributing factors, which is, by the way, a concept that is found in other halachas too. Ze v'ze gorem. It's not just one contributing to it, something else also doing it. But here it could be that even though they're not equal, and the Isser can handle it on its own, nevertheless, that would be a chidush, that we would not be so strict about it, because the whole thing is a derabanan anyway. And we've spoken about the various derabanans, whether it's a royal iskabed, with the example of that we had before with an Isser Balua, right? If it's a, what was the example of Isser Balua? Right? Well, actually, the Isser Balua applies to several things. If something is not an Isser Machmas Atzmoi, then it's not also the original, it has no Chashivas. So in the various cases that there are Isser Derabanan, there will be some things, some situations where they would not apply. And in this case, it could be that in a Zevazei Gorim situation, we would not have to be so machmir. Because remember, the Dover Amamid basically says, even if it's a little bit, there's no bittul. And that, of course, limits us to very, very, other situations with certain products you have more than enough to be mevatalet. But here, in cheese at least, it would be a problem. Nevertheless, we're makpid in cheese, even if it's made, as you know, the halacha is even if it's made with grasses, with herbs. Even though you can accomplish the cheese not using rennet, it's still asur. By cheese, the Chachamim asur even the ones that are not a problem, because of the chashash that they can be made the other way around too. So unless there's ashgacha from the beginning till the end, you cannot have the cheese, because what could it be already, right? By the way, the cheese can be made from horse milk. Cheese can be made from other milks that are not kosher. When we said that what cannot be made is butter. No. I'm saying I don't think they do it here. I know there's cheese made from goats here, from sheep, from cows, and from buffalo. And all of these are kosher.
Which are animals.
What's that?
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's what I've read. In the cheese making, there are other ways. But when it comes to butter is cannot.
Tahor animals.
It's only tahor animals. Nevertheless, we say that there's always this concern about other ingredients being. So with butter, there's less of an issue, but with cheese, even if there would not be an issue, there's still a gzera chachamim, which is, by the way, in some ways stricter than chalav Yisrael. Because chalav Yisrael, some say it's not a gzera, so if there's not a possibility for non-clean milk being introduced, because the government is strict, then you don't have to be ma'amid. Moshe says anyway that bal nefesh yachmir al atzmoi. That's in the end of his tshuva. Bal nefesh. If you want to be careful, then do it. What's interesting is I learned recently that Chalav of Yisrael, in some companies in the East Coast, they're allowing cameras to substitute the shgiach. So the guy is sitting in his office, watching with his cameras 1,000 miles away, the milk that's being milked. Is that acceptable? That's a 21st century question, right? Is that Chalav Yisrael? Obviously, if you have various safeguards, that is the basis for the leniency that many poskim hold that you can follow. It's not from Moshe's Psak alone. It's based on the Pri Chodesh. I think it's based on the Mata Yonasan, that says that the Chachamim never intended to answer that kind of milk if the problems did not exist. By a cheese, they said flat out that we don't accept. It could be made, it's a possibility that it could be made, so even if it's made from grasses, from herbs, from plants, we won't allow it. But with milk, with bread they were even more lenient, because bread is a staple food. People need to people need to have bread. So even though it's pas akum, bread that's made by goy, and what is the problem there? The problem by pas akum is not necessarily tarfus. The problem is like bishul akum. You may come to assimilate to them and intermarry with them. But if you're actually seeing the bread being made, right, then it's not a problem. Or throwing the match. As far as not only seeing it being made, as far as the ingredients, but the bishul or the afia part, throwing the match, turn on the oven and you're okay with it. And I know that in certain Latin American countries, South American countries, you actually can go to the Indians where they make bread on the street. They have a little thing. And you've seen all the ingredients for yourself. There shouldn't be a problem. And if you have no other bread to eat, you're allowed to eat that bread. I remind people that with Pas Yisrael, you have to be more makbid times than other things, because the halacha with Pas Yisrael is that you can only have this non-Jewish bread that having kosher ingredients in the event that bread is not available in a kosher bakery. But if you like baguette and there's a kosher Jewish bakery within that's accessible to you that you can get it, you have no permission to eat the non-Jewish bread, even if it has an OU on it. Now, if you're in Oklahoma City on the way and there's nothing else, then you can have it, as long as, of course, the ingredients are kosher. Pas Yisrael, or Pas Akum, I should say, is only mutter if that does not exist. They don't make it in a kosher bakery. Otherwise, people think they can just buy bagels in Ralph's. You can buy bagels in a kosher bakery. Bagels, and there's a lot of breads you can buy in a kosher. You should not buy it from a non-Jewish company, even if it has an OU. The OU is only intended to remind you that these are kosher ingredients. In the event that you have to eat it, you can eat it. So that's as far as Pas Akum is concerned. They were lenient because people need bread to eat. But even then, you have to check the ingredients. Okay, we'll stop over here.